Right now, we're going to start tearing apart the motor on this twin turbo V8 BMW that I bought at a scrap auction for just $1,300, and we'll find out really quickly whether it needs a $100 routine maintenance fix to get it running right, or a $10,000 full-out engine repair that turns it into a parts car special. Now, it's amazing to think that a new iPhone could cost more than an entire BMW, and at one point, someone paid over $80,000 for this BMW. But even with 125,000 miles on it, this car still looks amazing. It even has newer matching tires and a super clean and comfy interior with all the modern electronics. Now, this one was probably a bit cheaper than usual because I bought it dead, and most of the times when you see a cheap V8 BMW with this specific engine, it's dead, like the engine was blown up. But somehow we lucked out, finding only a broken wiring pigtail and a blown fuse, and once replaced, the car fired right up. But not without a good bit of blue smoke. This smoking was so common on every single one of these cars that came with the same exact twin turbo V8 setup that there was a class action lawsuit against BMW for it. And the problem stems from one of two main issues. The first could be your crankcase ventilation system. That's the easier problem to have, and one we'll check here in a moment. The second is with a set of worn out valve stem seals. That job in itself bills 40 labor hours at the BMW dealership, and at today's average rate, that's $10,000 in labor, which is just a hair more than I have into this entire car. So we definitely don't want that to be our problem. So let's just start with the cheaper and easier system here. This car's crankcase ventilation runs through some plastic tubing with one-way valves in them. When they get old, they can crack and leak air, which throws off the engine's vacuum balance and lets excess oil vapor get sucked into the intake. When that happens, the engine starts burning that oil, and that's why you'll see some blue smoke out of the exhaust. There's really a very easy way to test this. With the car running, we'll go and pull its oil cap and see what it both feels and sounds like. Oh my goodness, oh my goodness. You hear that? Just to show you a quick comparison on a similar style engine, this is a twin turbo Genesis engine. We're going to remove its oil cap really quick. You can see there's no suction at all keeping it in place. There's no noise when I lift it up. This is good news for us. It does seem like there's an excessive amount of vacuum underneath that oil cap there. If you've ever dealt with one of these engines, I want to hear what you thought about that. But because of that, we could believe that some of that blue smoke, if not all of it, is coming from a failed CCV system. It would be foolish to completely write off the valve stem seals at this point because of the car's age, mileage, and its service history, which we'll get to in a bit. But for right now, to try and diagnose what part of the external crankcase ventilation system could be failed, we're going to jump to a smoke test while everything is still assembled. That way, if there's any cracked or leaking hoses or gaskets or anything there, we find out immediately before this engine inevitably gets torn down. A smoke test is simple and effective. Basically, we're going to pump smoke into the engine, and if there's any openings anywhere, we'll be able to see them. In our case, we went and tied off our air intakes, which came missing on this car, with some rubber gloves, and we pulled one of the CCV lines in order to feed the smoke in. Now, I'm mostly concerned about all the hoses that run on the top of the engine and the intakes, which are buried kind of on either side. But after several minutes, the only smoke we found was coming from a turbo diverter valve. A $100 part that has nothing to do with this problem, except for proving that between this BMW and its owner, one will always be broke. Now, since the exposed parts of our CCV system don't seem to be failed, it can only be an internal part, and I have a bit of an unconventional theory here. Feel free to tell me if I'm wrong, but we have an extreme valve cover leak that we discovered when we initially pulled our ignition coils. And since the valve cover acts in part with the CCV system, if it's not sealed right, the system won't work. So no matter what, we've got to pull all this apart and replace the gaskets at the very least. And while everything's open, we'll have a better idea of how this engine was taken care of and whether it's worth putting a lot of our time and money into. As tough as this car might be right now, it has the makings makings of an amazing and very cheap daily driver. But before it ever sees a public road, well, we're gonna have to get it started first. And then I'll wanna install a dash camera for some obvious protection, but also because it adds that new school tech that an aged Euro car like this BMW could really use. And for this, I'm choosing the Safety 9, a slick 4K dash camera with a beautiful wide IPS display. It's super simple to install and to use, but powerful enough to capture every fine detail on the road, thanks to a Sony Starvis sensor and HDR. It stays crystal clear both front and back, day and night. This is what sets the Safety 9 apart from the rest. Its built-in AI ISP chip shines even in low-light situations. This is such a well thought out and user-friendly dash camera. All the buttons are simple and laid out nicely along the edge and sides here. So if you're driving, you want to shut the screen off at night, you can just hit that button on the side. Right here, we'll switch things to the rear view so you can see what's going on behind you. If you press this button right here, it will actually lock that event and save it in a special place so you can easily access it later. Right here, it will go and show us our album so we can go through and see exactly what we've been recording. And last, we've got our settings menu. And one of its greatest features has to be the parking surveillance. As long as you hardwire your Safety 9, it'll provide around-the-clock AI security with motion and impact detection, so you can always keep an eye on your car no matter how long you're away from it. It's obvious that the Safety 9 is packed with so many big features, but they nailed the fine details as well, like the fact that it uses a very efficient form of video compression to make the files compact, easy to transfer when you're moving them from the camera to your phone wirelessly, but also so that you can share them efficiently while still retaining that amazing 4K image quality. This is truly an amazing piece of tech, and I highly recommend you check it out over at that link in the description box. In today's day and age, you don't want to be driving around unprotected. I highly suggest you get a dash camera, and I think that the Safety 9 is worth a look. You can check it out over at that link in the description. The first thing I'm attempting to take off is the reason why this job bills like 12 or 13 hours, however many. This brace right here that's just going to be in our way, there's one on either side. This is a 15mm socket. It doesn't fit that bolt, however, it fits this bolt. This one is a 16mm. Why they did that? Well, I guess it's just good old German engineering. My plan is to attack these intercoolers that sit in front of the covers first. That way we can get to all the lines and hoses underneath it. They have a bunch of coolant hoses running to them, so I'm going to use these clamps to kind of just pinch them off so they don't leak coolant everywhere. Take the hook here, push it over, and then tighten them down. Feels like you make good progress when you get a big part like that out, but then you're greeted with this wiring loom that has about 87 different connectors on it that power literally everything on this side. I'm seeing plugins for the fuel pumps, for the mass airflows. I think the ignition coils are driven by these. So imagine if you had a wiring issue in just one of these smaller looms here. You have a nightmare scenario to try and figure out where they came from. It's why these cars never can keep the resale value. Let's crack this high pressure fuel pump nut here. Just kind of let it bleed out. And I'm pretty sure we got to remove these pumps. This is like the textbook reason why these BMW V8s are cheaper than their 4-cylinder and 6-cylinder cars when they're used. It's not all the disgusting leaks that we have here, but it's that darn wiring harness that is just sitting on top of the valve cover in our way. In order to get it up and out, well, you got to get to the underside of the car where some of the plugs run. We've got some stuff out of the oil pan here. The transmission, major transmission wiring plug has to come out. And you can see how big that connector is there. Well, guess what? That has to slip up and under some oil lines there, and they give you no clearance to do that. So those oil lines that go to the side of the pan, those have to come out. I think that means we might probably have to drain our oil. And yeah, all that For a valve cover gasket job, that would be about 25 minutes on a Honda. Ugh. Come on. All right, here we go. Now we have decent access to the valve cover, but not before we pull those darn fuel injectors out. I mean, just looking at this, I mean, it's not gonna fall down. It's not gonna come up. There's no room between the body of the car, those AC lines, and the actual cover itself. So these are the engine mount bolts. And we're just gonna remove them, which will free up this mount right here. That way we can go lower the car back on the ground and push upward on it. Hopefully that'll tilt the engine like this, giving us more room to pull that rail out and pull the valve cover out. Keep coming if you can. Let's see if I still got this from the Range Rover days. Oh yeah, these come out much easier than a Range Rover. Oh, look at that buildup, jeez. All right, this job is no fun, and it's only halfway done. Although this is supposedly the harder of the two sides, so hopefully taking the next half off is not going to be as bad. These things are toast. Look, I'm pulling on this. It's like welded in there. It's so dry, it's flat. These are completely flat, completely dried out. Look. Oh my goodness. Look at how hard this is. Look, look. This gasket could it have 125,000 miles on it? There's no maintenance done on this car. It's unbelievable. I mean, I say that. It's actually clean under here. If you take a look, they did do regular oil changes, like really regular oil changes, nothing else. It's one of those sort of cars. Now, what I'm really interested in seeing is this guy right here. These are the oil separators, which separate the oil from the fuel vapors, which then travel through the valve cover to the top where the PCV valves are. And a lot of the PCV repair kits contain these. They're not that cheap. They're like a few $100 each. But if these were all sludged up inside, or if any of this plastic was cracked, that could potentially be a leading cause of our blue smoke issue, or it could have nothing to do with it. Let's take it off first and see if we can get a closer look. On these parts is a date stamp with the number 12 on it. So these were manufactured in 2012. The car is a 2013, so they're definitely the originals. Also, when BMW issued the major customer care package for people with failing N63 engines, these separators were in the parts list to be replaced, along with a slew of other hard parts. So could these be failed? Like I said earlier, besides a sludgy buildup inside, which I don't really feel when I shake them, I really don't know how else they could go bad. Inside should be some baffles and such that basically separate the oil from all the other crankcase vapors before they go through the tubes on the top of the engine. There's also several passages all over, so I'm not really sure of any effective way of testing these, but I did notice that one side plastic housing could be separating here. The easy solution is just to swap these and hope for the best. Here we've got both CCV hoses removed from the car. This is where they plug into the valve cover here and into the oil separator underneath that valve cover. And you can see they're all in one piece, they're all intact. And while these are the most common issue with the PCV systems on these cars, well, it's because they get old, they get brittle, and they break. But if you look at mine, they look darn near brand new. But there's one other thing I noticed that could potentially be an issue, even though I don't think it's an issue. If you look right here on the valve portion itself, there's no markings on them. This is a cheap aftermarket non-OE part. If you shopped BMW or an OE equivalent replacement part for these, you'd probably spend about $200 for the pair. Or if you bought these knockoffs, they're readily available all over the internet. They're like $40. So a significant price difference. And there's some people online that report they work just fine. Others say that they install them on their car and then they had excess crankcase vacuum like we had. So I'm not quite sure that these are actually bad. If you shake them, you can hear that the valves in them are moving freely. We can also test them real easily with a balloon. All you do is take the balloon and put it over the side after our valve here. I'll mimic the crankcase pressure by blowing into it. And you can see when we let go of everything, the air is held in the balloon. Let's test the other side real quick. Even though we haven't found a single smoking gun, we do have 2 smoking tailpipes, so between the original oil separators and the aftermarket CCV valves, we can source some OE equivalent parts, swap them out, along with some fresh valve cover gaskets, and there's about a 50% chance that greatly helps our smoking and drivability problems. Now back inside the engine, with both valve covers pulled in around a day's time, the really good news is just how clean things are all over. Ignore the center portion where the injectors and spark plugs live. That's the exposed part. The valve train itself looks to have been religiously serviced. There's very little buildup on the valve covers, and the fresher the oil that this engine saw could really help extend the lives of those valve seals. And take a look inside the cylinders. Besides each one of them having a pool of oil, because every spark plug and injector tube was loaded with oil when we took them out while it just fell in, the walls are beautiful, with no abnormal wear at all. While I'm sure there's many reasons why these seals were such a weak point of this engine, one of the popular online theories points to BMW issuing 15,000 mile service intervals upon the release of this platform, which means they were telling new owners to go 15,000 miles between oil changes. But when the class action lawsuit popped off, a slew of new service bulletins were posted changing that 15,000 mile interval down to 10,000. Now, if that is one of the main reasons these engines wore out so fast, then the history I found in the Carfax is gold. The last owner of this car had the oil change between 4,000 and 5,000 miles at a pop, with the last service done right around 1,000 miles ago. The other way to look at things is that the frequent oil changes were due to the fact that this car's been burning so much oil, they needed it to keep it alive over the last 25,000 miles. Logic tells us to start with the most efficient repairs, put the car back together, see how it runs, and go from there, but this is a BMW, so it lacks all basic logic. The way I'm looking at it is that we're 13 hours into a potential 40-hour repair. But there's a lot more that comes with a valve stem seal job than like something we did today by just removing the valve covers. Anybody could do the job that we did today. Yes, it's long. Yes, there's a lot of labor involved. But even if you had to do it on a jack and jack stands, you could do it. You just remove a bunch of stuff and put it to the side. The valve stem seal job is much more surgical. And it is a very precise job. If not done right, you risk dropping things into the engine to the point where you got to disassemble more of the engine, and there's a lot of specialty tools required. The main tool set that everyone depends on to complete this job, especially while the engine is still installed in your car, costs, get this, $1,300, the same price I won this thing for at auction. And so this is where logic exits the chat. The other big reason we shouldn't do a valve stem seal job on this car, besides having to buy that expensive toolkit or any additional parts that come along with it, is just the fact that when BMW did have the class action lawsuit for this engine, they had to reduce the price of a long block at the dealer. That price is still in effect. So if you went and shopped a modern BMW twin turbo V8 engine, because whatever, you modified yours and blew it up, it would normally cost you somewhere in the $20,000 or $30,000 range, maybe even higher. But again, because this one was problematic and it was very widely publicized, BMW reduced the price of this engine, the entire engine, to like $2,700 initially. Now, of course, with inflation and price changes, things have gone up a bit. I think this engine, once you turn in your old one as a core, is between $4,000 and $5,000. You could see with the risk involved of doing the valve stem seal job, potentially messing it up, or just having other parts inside the engine that are worn out at this point. By the time you start spending money on a million different parts, well, you're already at that new engine price, and swapping an engine in this car would be much more simpler and straightforward than actually rebuilding the current one that's in there, and it would end up being way more cost effective in the long run. The really unique thing, specifically on these run of cars from BMW, is that with all the campaigns, it has just tanked their value. Like, it's not abnormal to buy one for $2,000 and $3,000. Usually they're not running, usually they are for parts, so we kind of got lucky with this one. And hey, the fact that the engine looks as clean as it does too, that gives us at least one leg up in trying to make this a somewhat decent daily driver. I want to hear from you guys. What do you think we should do with the 550i, considering the cost and the risk of a valve seal job versus just slapping a new PCV system in it versus an entire engine swap from the dealer? I want to hear what you have to say. Let me know down in the comments, and make sure you're following the channel. That way, when we get this thing in somewhat driving condition and test it out, you're the first to find out. And if you're as excited as I am about the very slight potential prospects of having a running, driving twin turbo V8 BMW that's in really nice shape for under $2,000, because that's the limit I'm going for here. I don't want to spend much more than that. Well, be sure to hit that like button. Guys, can't thank each and every one of you enough for watching today. I'll catch you very soon.